Nation presenting Succession Recaps. I'm your host, Negin Farsad, and we are dissecting HBO's hit series Succession because we love watching C-suite executives dirty their sneakers in Norwegian dirt. And so today, we will tackle Season 4, Episode 5, titled Kill List. Don't be confused, this is still the FTN feed, and you will get your regular episode of Fake the Nation on Thursdays. But on Mondays, for the next 5 weeks, we will be doing this bonus Succession Recap pod. Today, I am but part of the Quad Squad because today we have assembled an excellent panel for you. Joining me on a peak in a Norwegian mountaintop, taping this podcast in a sauna, we have with us artist and filmmaker and expert on the ultra-wealthy because she's eaten their Norwegian spread. It is Danielle Durchslag. Hey, Danielle.
Hey, Negin. So thrilled to be here. Think of me as a wealthy estrogen air freshener. That's what I'm here to do.
Also joining us, you've heard him on Fake the Nation like 1 gajillion times because he's one of our OG cast. He is a Frank, he is a Carl, he's a Jerry of the Fake the Nation verse. He's also a writer, a comedian, someone I've seen just like regularly obliterate audiences on comedy stages around the country. And he is our number one boy. It is Benari Lee Poulton. Hey, Benari.
Hey, so happy to be here. I'm ready. I'm like IKEA to fuck.
So before we get into it, I just want to let people know if you've enjoyed this pod, and let's say you also enjoy the Thursday pod, you can get more pod at patreon.com/Negin Farsad. You support the show, you get bonus episodes of the show for as little as $4 a month. So go to patreon.com/Negin Farsad and give that a look-see. So before I do my little summary, which will be quite brief this week, I just want to hear your at first blush thoughts on this episode. What did you feel, Danielle?
You know, this episode, I felt this whole show contends with misogyny. That's not new, but I felt like this episode took such an organic deep dive into misogyny, which made the fact that it was actually secretly a woman's private triumph at the end particularly compelling and exciting. So I really enjoyed watching this episode.
Yes, patriarchy and misogyny on display. Benari, what were your first blush thoughts?
Yeah, I agree. What I really enjoyed seeing was, especially in comparison to last week's episode, when Shiv literally takes a fall, you know that she's going to be on the rise. And what I really enjoyed was seeing her, instead of trying to fight the tide, she learned to surf. She was surfing the wave, just getting a feel for, okay, I'm gonna be cut out. Ken's gonna go back to season 1 Ken and be self-destructive. Roman is a lunatic and he's gonna go wherever the bully in the room takes him. So she's like playing them, and then she really got Madsen's, and so just watching Shiv at work was a real joy this episode for me.
Yeah, my just feelings about this episode were just like, we set the table last week at the wake or whatever that hangout was, and now we're just like doing Manhattan penthouse intrigue on steroids. It is like the part of the show that I've been desperately waiting for 4 seasons. Like, this is what I've wanted. I've wanted to see the siblings figure it the fuck out. Again, I wish they would just like be good and kind to each other, work together, and then ultimately achieve some sort of like beautiful pseudo-socialist ends.
Yes, but
that somehow involves lots of childcare for everyone. That's where I would love for this to end up.
I mean, no one is caring for children in this show. No one is caring for children.
No one is caring for children, though there is one theoretically active parent.
Nikki, your description makes me wonder if what we'd rather be really talking about here today is the 1980s show Different Strokes.
Yes.
Because what you've just described is a much closer fit to that program.
I want Jesse Armstrong, I'm sure he's a rabid listener of this podcast.
Of course.
I want him to know that were I to ever be a writer in one of his rooms, I know that everything I'm saying would never happen. I'm not a crazy person, but I'm a crazy person. You know what I mean?
What you talking about, Negin? One interesting through line for this particular season is the kids working together are a strong force.
Yes.
Like Logan said, they have juice. And when they work together, they accomplish things. And what I thought was really interesting last episode, even though they were kind of working against each other, they did do what's best and the kids succeeded.
Yeah.
This episode, they did succeed, but part of the succeeding in succession was them unknowingly all working together to get the deal done. And Shiv using basically Ken and Roman's weaknesses to seal the deal and telling Matsson, we don't know fully what their conversation was, but I feel like the end goal was we didn't want them to tank the deal. And what's so great about Ken is all he does is fuck up deals. So when Ken's big idea is I want to tank the deal, his failure is actually success.
Succeeding in the deal.
Best thing for the deal was Ken not wanting the deal to happen.
So let's do a quick summary of the episode. In case you forgot what happened in this just what a fantastic episode of television. And there's not much here to recap, but basically the extended Waystar Royco team gets into a couple of PJs and head to a fjord-laden landscape in the Norwegian mountains where they intend to bleed the Swede. Roman, Kendall, and Matsson have a meeting in a room with a view. Then they have a meeting in a picnic area with a view. Finally, they have a meeting on a mountain peak with a view. And along the way, we learn that Kendall and Roman want to blow up the deal, keep and run the company. They're leaking stories to the press about bad vibes to sour the deal. We learn that Shiv is entirely aware of these shenanigans, and she herself makes a connection with Matsson, who it turns out is the creepiest fuck of them all with a regular bloodletting practice. And finally, we see what it's like when Roman truly loses his shit at Matsson and speaks the unfettered truth. Despite every effort to blow up the deal, Matsson makes an offer so big he depresses the fuck out of Kendall and Roman. Shiv, of course, guided him to that deal, or so I believe. Weirdly, I mentioned that Roman loses his shit at Matsson and says the truth. And there was a lot of truth telling in this episode. And I thought that was also a really interesting through line for this episode. Yes. We hear where Roman's like, I fucking hate you. It's like, yeah, this man is the worst. And we've all been tiptoeing around just clearly saying that. But he sucks. And then also there was a weird amount of truth between Shiv and Matsson, where she talked about the dissolution of her marriage in an oddly honest way, and then he was oddly honest. We'll get to that conversation in a second. But before, let's did you feel like there was is this post dad world just oddly more truthful or something? Am I the only? What did you feel about the truths that were coming out? Benari? I
think that the truth, like everything else, was used as a bargaining chip. I think that everyone deployed the truth when they needed something. Roman, it was cathartic to have Roman sort of spill his guts like that, but it was also the last play he had to make, and he had nothing left to lose. But he also knows Matsson doesn't fuck around when it comes to, just tell me what you want. He says it. I want to know what your number is. Shiv says, just say the biggest number and they'll have to take the deal. That's how you get the deal. And Matsson's game was sort of bullying them, belittling them, doing everything that he could to push their buttons, which is, you're a tribute band, right?
That was the sickest burn.
Oh my God.
And so in terms of all of that, and Shiv, let's talk about Shiv being honest. Is she drinking? She's got her whiskey in her hand, but she's doing that sort of Bruce Wayne, am I drinking? Am I not? He offers her a bump. She takes it. She never does.
She never does the bump. She just basically stirs around a little pot of chlorine. She's just stirring it with a little spoon and then puts it to the side.
And when Shiv is confronted, Shiv knows what's going on. She confronts Kendall several times. Did you know about this? What about these dad stories?
Yeah, she knows.
She knows it all.
Here's what's going on with ATN. Rome, did you have it? Is there an inside track? on this. We can't have a presidential candidate sitting in on meetings. She knows everything that's going on. And it's really interesting too, how she's bringing it back, where she understands that she knows what Tom wants. Tom does want to get back together. Tom doesn't want the end of the marriage.
Right.
And she's deploying a little bit of the manipulative truth in that as well.
Danielle, can we talk about this for a second? Because this is the aspect of the show that I found most fascinating. She is using her sexuality in a way that I don't feel like we've really seen her use her sexuality. I mean, obviously she uses it with the political guy that she has sex with, whatever. That's a little bit of a different story because they were once an item.
Totally.
But I don't really see it in that scenario. But here, she's clearly flirting with Matsson, right? Like, and she's using, I think the honesty about the relationship was also, like you said, it was a tactic. Because when you're remarkably honest with people, they suddenly feel close to you. And then it's like, okay, and then you're building some kind of a trust, even if it's fake, but she's also signaling to him, hey, I'm single, and I'm down to fuck you. But even though so gross, he's the grossest man. He's so fucking, Matsson is.
Oh, it's a new level. It's a new level.
I understand that he's also the hottest guy in Norway, but he's also the most disgusting. He is like a combination of Elon Musk and Billy Bob Thornton and Angelina Jolie when they used to wear those vials of blood around their necks of each other's blood, and some sort of
but he's got like an Army Hammer vibe. Like he's like, is he a cannibal?
He's like the handsome, skeevy guy in the room that you originally think, oh, I'm going to talk to that guy. And then he casually mentions sending you some of his blood. So, he's the guy who surprises you. I think the casting here, frankly, is brilliant. I noticed so many sort of layers to the casting of this character. He's taller than these brothers significantly.
Yeah. He's abbier.
He's abbier. That kind of brief ab shot, not a coincidence.
Takes his shirt
on
off.
Purpose, folks.
Right. So he's
on
literally
purpose.
like babooning. It's the equivalent corporately of sort of, knocking your chest to show how big and powerful you are. As to Shiv's honesty, that question that you were asking, Negin, I was so struck by the moment where Matsson says, I like you. You can take a joke. Every woman,
you're like your father.
You're like your father. Yes, you can take a joke. Now, on the one hand, he's really saying to Shiv, unlike your brothers, I have respect for you fundamentally because you're like your dad and I respected him. That's innate to the conversation. But let's talk as women about what it means, because we've all been a member of this conversation, sadly, when a man turns to you and says, you can take a joke. What it actually means is I'm allowed to sexually harass you without consequence.
Yes.
That's what that sentence means.
That's what that means.
So, for Shiv, in that moment, she's such a smart operator. I think I'm guessing she really understands the weight of this man's heart, so to speak. Hearts aren't really a good object to cite in the show. The weight of this man's wallet is to play that game. She's going to look great in neutrals. She's going to be a little bit flirty. She's going to give him what he needs. I don't think it's because Shiv is coming to a new post-Logan truth-oriented version of self. I think she's very strategic. And she gets that this guy thinks she's attractive. He thinks he can be sexist with her. She's going to use that to her advantage. And we saw at the end of the episode, who's not on the kill list? Any of the women.
Yeah.
Shiv is clearly part of that decision. So
and Tom.
Right.
Tom is not. So it's all Shiv's people.
It's all Shiv's people plus her, let's say, sadistic plaything. I'm going to call Tom that for the moment.
Yes.
So we're seeing how she's using corporate misogyny to kind of, in an underground way, have a feminist mandate. I think that happens probably a lot in corporate culture, but I've never seen it on TV before, and I found it thrilling.
Oh, it's thrilling. And it's also the number of times I've allowed higher ups be misogynist around me, towards me, in front of me, make the jokes. And I've laughed along.
Same.
Because because I need to like get to the thing, you know, like
Mhm.
let me get through these horrible 20 minutes or whatever, so then I could then do my job. And then, and, you know, and we're put in that horrible situation again and again and again and again, whatever. I mean, theoretically it's getting better. So I thought that was interesting. And I also thought what a great situation to have her be single, to have her be able to like let other people think that she's possibly available to them, you know?
Right.
So that's just such a great storytelling move. And then the other great, I just want to just shout out to writerly efficiency. You mentioned that she doesn't like that Jared Mencken is on these calls with ATN, which is a basically direct reference to the Trump administration being on being so in on all the Fox stuff.
Correct.
But they set it up in the Nazi episode in last season. So everything that they've ever set up, it's not out of the blue. She is not, none of this stuff is out of the blue. It's extremely efficient. We were given seeds, they planted seeds, and now they're here to sow.
One other terrific little moment is when Matsson is explaining his vision for ATN. It actually aligns with what Shiv wants to do with ATN.
That's right.
Right.
So as she's sitting there at the table, like listening, she's getting the best read on the room, but also understands this actually aligns with her, because she knows that if her brothers stay, if they take over, they're just going to do it like their dad. They're gonna it's just gonna get smaller men with bigger veins. Like like just yelling. Like that's the future of ATN. And that might actually make a lot of money. It might keep working.
Probably.
But it's not what she wants. So she doesn't give a shit if ATN tanks. What she does give a shit about is like, oh, this guy will tank Mencken. And I think that there's something that's being set up too, I want to throw out there, because the one sibling she didn't get to interact with was Connor. Connor's out there as a spoiler. At some point where I think this is going is
he's a candidate.
As we've seen her, don't forget a few seasons back, Connor asked her to work on the campaign. There is a world in which she is the one basically manipulating that. He's probably going to get a post Logan death bump, right? So like if we're setting up she's backing Connor as a spoiler to screw Mencken's chances. She's backing Matsson to tank ATM, turn it around into like a normal-ish news station or whatever. And also, if he takes it over, that gets the siblings out of control of the company and away from the company altogether, so that the three of them can actually do the business plan that they've been trying to do for 6 months. Right? So she doesn't want them to stick on. The whole idea is for them to get the deal done and get out of there. So she's sort of putting everyone in place, and that to see that it's very difficult to see sort of a paper trail in action, but that's what they're kind of doing with Shiv. And I thought this episode was just very masterful in the way they dramatized the very behind the scenes choices she was making.
And if I could just add a quick thing, I was thinking a lot in this episode about ideology versus reputation. Kendall says there's a 500-foot drop, reputational drop at one point. I realized in this episode in a new way, I don't think any of these people have a real personal political ideology. No. It doesn't exist. But I think the difference between Shiv and her two brothers is that her reputational drop in the context of her culture and her friendships would be somehow being enormous to this right-wing horrible thing. For Kendall, his reputational drop is failing to lead that right-wing horrible thing. So the thing that they're at odds on is not actually ideology, it's reputation, which is terrifying because, as Matsson says, look, all these people are so small, everyone except us. These are the people on the top of the mountain deciding how politics works for all of us to some degree. So the idea that it comes down to reputation and their dynamic with dead dad, pretty terrifying for society.
And
we're going to have to take a quick break. Before we do, I just want to read the one Matsson line that we've referenced He says, long term, I don't think news for angry people works. I would fold it in, fat pipe that shit, make it more Bloomberg great, simple, cheap, huge, IKEA to fuck. All right, let's take a quick break so we can hear from our sponsors, and then we will come back and continue our chatter. And we are back. And I have more questions. I want to, so we're talking a little bit about what, you were talking about reputation before we went to break, Danielle. And you're talking about like none of them really have an ideology. I would like to get into what each of them actually want. Roman, to me, it's like he is actually seems the most broken from his father's death, right? He's on a funicular on the way to that meeting with Matsson on a peak. And he gets a picture of his dead dad from Connor, because they set up this hilarious thing where Connor's going to send them pictures of the dead dad, not wearing a kilt, whatever. And so he gets one, and it messes him up, and so he's already rattled on his way to this meeting. And he fucking basically blurts it. They already know they want to destroy the deal. Part of the wanting to destroy the deal for Roman is that he hates Matsson. I think part of it for both Kendall and Roman is this is our dad's company, and we should be able to prove that we can run it, masterfully run it. So what are your impressions of where Roman is at? What does he want? Where is his soul, and where are his tears?
I think he wants love. I think Roman wants what he's always wanted, which is just the love. And he is the most he's the most empathetic of the siblings. He's the one who cares the most. He actually cared about his father's health. He was the one who stayed in contact, which Logan used to Logan's advantage. But I think he truly loves his family. I think he cares about the family. I think he was raised on this idea that, yeah, it's all bullshit, but it's a family company. It's our family's company. So whatever happens to that company is also happening to our family. He says it when he's talking with Kendall. We're selling. So who wins and who loses?
Yeah,
like it's not, like what's
right.
going to feel like a win? What's going to feel like a loss to him? He doesn't know. And I think Matsson calls them out on it on the mountain, where he says, your father was a prick. And that also sets Roman off, where he's like, dad wasn't a prick. We all know he was a prick. But that is a trigger for Roman, is bad mouthing his dead dad now in this time of grieving. But also Matsson says, your father knew what he wanted. Like, your father knew what he wanted. You guys don't know what you want. And Roman doesn't know what he wants. Kendall doesn't know what he wants. Kendall is a junkie. Kendall starts off this episode, season 1 Kendall. He's playing Jay-Z.
Jay-Z's takeover, yeah.
Unfucking believable. What a way.
Wait, Benari, though, I have to tell you, like, literally, I have a track, and it's and I've actually, like, I've shared this track with Danielle, and it's called Win, literally in caps, WIN, win. Because when we were, maybe both of us were having a bad day or something, whatever. I don't remember what the scenario was. And I was like, yo, this is what I use. And it's from J-Rock. And but listeners to Fake the Nation, but actually Patreon subscribers have probably gotten this on one of the playlists that I've shared with Patreon. But it is a very ridiculous, pump you up, walk into the boardroom, fuck shit up type, song that I rap along with. And I'm like, Negin, is that you? And so anyways, I get the impetus.
But that was the behavior that he was engaging in season 1. That's how we first met Kendall, right?
Yes,
where he's doing that. So he's back to that. He's back to season 1 Kendall. When he starts putting his plan into motion, he calls Greg over. That's how he used Greg for drug deals. When he hands Greg the phone to go, leak some info to the press, he could have just as easily said, you're going to get a phone call. This is my guy. He's got something for you. Like, you're going to go. So, like, it's the same behavior. The specifics have changed for Kendall, but Kendall's a junkie. He needs the adrenaline of like his father needed the adrenaline of the deal, which is very Trumpy. Kendall just needs like Roman says, like, why are you smiling? Like, who likes to tightrope walk on a razor?
On a razor, right?
Kendall, that's who.
Yeah.
He needs to be in free fall. He needs to be, and that's the self-destructive streak, which is why I think that the other two siblings keeping him in check a little bit makes them actually successful. But so I think in terms of like the wants, they don't even know what they want, because they don't, to your philosophy point, they don't have a philosophy.
So Danielle, you have a theory.
Yeah, I was surprised actually to hear the two of you sort of reference Roman as Mr. Empathy. For me, he will forever be the man who tortured a poor child at a baseball game with an unnecessary check for $1 million. I wouldn't call him Senior Compassion, given the chance. But, I don't think I would even use the word empathy here. I actually think what we're seeing is distinct responses to levels of childhood abuse. Mm-hmm. We know that Roman got physically hurt by his father.
Right.
Mm-hmm. That's not been referenced by anyone else. The little that I know about abuse, I'm the opposite of an expert, but the little that I know is that sometimes abuse victims become more enmeshed with their abuser than the other people in the family ecosystem. I don't think we're seeing a deeper level of empathy necessarily from Roman. Sometimes, like in that Carrie moment, I think he identifies with the person who's being treated the worst in the room because he's had that experience. But outside of that, I find him to be almost incapable of empathy. So it's less for me about compassion or empathy. It's much more about, I'm so tethered to this individual who, in a way, defined me through his abuse. That is what I'm operating from. So I think when we're seeing in that moment, Roman, going at Matsson, yes, it's the truth and it's how he really feels, but it's mostly his grief that he's expressing there. That's a grief monologue, right? And so, Roman is closer to his feelings, but I definitely would not cite him as Mr. Empathy in the group.
Well, I mean, hurt people, right? That's where you see where he starts, and then you start understanding, oh, that's why he's snarky about that, or his armor is these just biting one-liners and just guts people, and has no compunction about knifing someone and slitting their throat, but then is like, oh, are you okay? He'll be the first to get them a Band-Aid or something,
right?
And, so, but I think in that moment, I think you're absolutely right. That is a grief monologue, but he's also telling off a powerful figure who was bullying him in a way he never could to his father. The closest he came to that was the last phone message he left his father when he was like, "Are you a cunt? I'm just trying to find out. Like, are you okay?
Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
Call me back."
Yeah, because he hadn't gotten all the data yet, for sure.
So in that moment, he gets to tell off Matsson in that way, all that anger, all that rage, and just like, fuck you, you can't bully me anymore. And, I'm out of here. I fucking hate you. Because he also fucking hates his dad.
Right.
He fucking hated his dad for what he did and how he made them.
Okay.
And so, yeah.
Can I say something too, that this is slightly unrelated, but it's a point I'm remembering because that scene really laid it out for me, which is that everyone is treating these men, specifically Logan, Roy, and Matsson, as if they're some kind of a genius. And we do that with Elon Musk, right?
Yes.
We did that with Trump, right? We do that with these people. And fuck it, we did that with Obama. Like, we treat certain men like they're geniuses. And what I found in all of these situations, like fucking the kid, okay, so the Sibs are not serious people, but Matsson is a serious people. Like the fucking guy that regularly sends liters of blood to his comms director. I mean, he is in his plans. I mean, again, like Elon Musk is potentially literally right now tanking all of Twitter by asking people to pay for the blue check, right? Like the idea that he
literally blew up a space rocket like Roman did in season 1.
He literally blew up a space rocket.
Amazing.
And then we're just like, Elon Musk, what a genius. And it's funny because I once said in mixed company, like, I mean, he didn't even invent Tesla. And they're like, no, but the things that he did with Tesla. And like, I was reamed for even suggesting that he wasn't the total mastermind behind Tesla, And it's like, I'm not trying to say that
When
these
TED Talks go bad.
Yeah. Which is when I have been in the same room as Elon Musk is at TED. But
Right.
The idea that Elon Musk or that these people, I'm not saying that they're idiots, and I'm not saying they didn't have some good ideas, but these people then get surrounded by yes men, and then they cannot continue to develop those good ideas at the same pace, and they have no personal filters, they have no personal guardrails
Correct.
to know that they're then being monsters.
Which is how you end up urinating through a work meeting.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, Mattson is taking a piss, everybody.
Yeah, like exactly.
While Roman is like expressing grief, hatred, all these strong feelings, that dick is out there and it's whizzing. Incredible.
I also want to point out, oh, sorry, Benari, make your point.
Oh, well, I was going to say, also, was Logan a serious person? I mean, Logan, all the things that he got away with because he was rich and powerful and the biggest swinging dick in the room. And so one thing that really struck me was how the boys are applauded at the end. You did it. 192. Unbelievable job. And they're getting congratulated. They are just deflated because they know that Mattson got what he wanted, which is to buy
take over.
Right? Everyone gets it's a huge victory. It's the biggest victory. And one thing that I was thinking about is, man, if that's how all the deals go, the successful deals, that makes you a miserable prick like Logan Roy in the end, where you're never fucking happy because all your victories are really defeats that nobody knows, but you're being applauded. The best fucking guy in the room who got it done.
Yeah.
But also, Mattson not only undercuts them in all the ways we've talked about, but also in that moment, has there ever been a clearer kind of image on this show that it's really not in the control of the siblings? These two guys can still vote against it. It will pass.
Yeah.
There's a board here.
There's nothing they can do.
The fantasy of wealth culture is that because I have all this money that I'm sitting on top of, I actually do control everything. And when you are faced with the reality that that's not entirely true, wealthy people freak out. In that moment on the plane, when these two men think, we're in charge, what we want is what matters, and we're the ones who are dictating what happens next, when they realize none of that is true, they look like little crumpled boys on a private jet.
Right.
Yeah.
I also want to, I have a couple more questions for you guys. And then we're going to wrap up. But one of them is, that moment where Kendall walks into his hotel room, whatever that bungalow room thingy is, overlooking the fjord. And Roman is in another room adjacent. And he goes, is yours small? Mine's fucking small. Every little detail that they experience in that trip, they're wondering if it's a power move. Correct. And I just wanted to, I'm only pointing this out because I've seen people do that, right? Like I've seen people wonder like, oh, did I get the small thing? Did I da-da-da? And like they're comparing and contrasting and feeling slighted and cheated. So there's a lot of like, and I've seen this with wealthy people where they just feel slighted and cheated. And I'm like, it's funny because I have, none of the money you guys do, and I don't feel slighted and cheated all the time. So it's a weird byproduct of wealth to feel slighted and cheated all the time, and I think that's just a weird thing that develops, and I've noticed it.
Well, there's an assumption, right, that's totally understandable from outside the 1%, that if you have more abundance, you feel more abundant. It's actually not always true. Yeah. You're right, Negin. A sense of scarcity, paranoia is really a through line through wealth culture. And this show gets that so right.
Absolutely. Now, okay,
yeah.
I wanted...
And I think, yeah.
I wanted to get into the loose ends machine. So there's a few things out there. I've mentioned in previous episodes, and I am obsessed with the fact that Kendall was a part of a kid dying. So that could come back to haunt us all. There also, I remembered there is a podcast that's digging up dirt on the Roys, a book or something. There's a journalist digging into Willa. Remember
Yes.
all these little things. Cruises is still just a large thing that we don't exactly know. There was a payment made, and I don't know, but still. There's a logistics folder that Greg was supposed to delete. And they've been dropping all of these nuggets about Connor's mom. So many loose ends. Benari, do you feel like we're gonna see something from these loose ends?
One of the things that I think is a through line in this show is how much none of this matters. Like, and I say this with all sincerity. I think Armstrong is really just going all out to just brutally tear down any myths about late stage capitalism that we might have.
Yes.
This is a nobody gets out alive show. So whether all this stuff could happen, and it's not going to make a difference.
It's not going to matter.
It's not going to change any of their lives in any, realistic material way. I mean, one thing that I was thinking about was when they were sitting around the table, and let me just say, I love when the show does this. When they brought the Roys to meet the Pierces, and you see their sort of liberal doppelgangers. I loved also their European, their European counterparts. Unbelievable, where Hugo's counterpart is an Olympian, almost.
I know.
And just the Aryan nation of it all, where they're just they're European. And what I loved also about how the show sort of throws those dangling plot threads back into the mix, right? Because you're like, oh, that's right, they're always plate spinning.
Yeah.
But one thing that was great is when they're sitting around the table and Tom's trying to ingratiate himself. I thought of you, Negin, because they brought up your favorite city on the planet, Paris. And it was like, and I just loved the question. It was like, there's a bunch of this goes to your, is Madsen serious? These are some of the richest, wealthiest people on the globe. Will France make it? Will France survive? Right. And
chit chat.
And they're talking about it as if they have any,
right?
That's
none of them know. Yeah. No, actually, all of them know as much as Greg knows, which is that Greg read an Economist article theoretically. But also, how many times have I been the guy that's like, I read an article in The Economist, and how I was like,
the only one who had any, actual substance to what he said was Tom, who was like, Americans don't give a fuck.
Americans don't give a fuck.
Which is sadly probably true.
Which is right. So the Americans don't give a fuck is also like that statement where Madsen goes, look, I'm just trying to make you rich. And Ken goes, I'm already rich. I think that underscores your point, Benari. None of this matters. They're already rich.
Yeah.
So everything else is just gameplay.
Can I cite a loose end gripe? I have a loose end gripe, and it's this, and I'm curious if you two share it. Kendall's addiction to substances was a massive plot point for many episodes, and suddenly it's disappeared. No one references the fact that is he drinking, is he not, etc. From what we know, if my math is correct, he's had less than 48 hours of rehab. It seems so
Danielle loves citing his rehab time.
I can't get over the fact that he's had less than 48 hours of rehab and he's still doing all of this. Is it, as Benari, or maybe Benari, you would say, is it that addiction has simply been replaced by sort of the corporate, need?
Yes.
This is feeding that hole for him.
Maybe that's correct, but I have to say for myself as an audience member, it does strain credulity a bit for me that it is suddenly entirely.
Well, you don't have friends that were once alcoholics and are now really into CrossFit. You know what I mean? It's like the same thing, except for the corporate version, the corporate power version.
I sure do, Negin, but after CrossFit, they go to a meeting.
Okay, yeah.
There's a culture of healing here that he's not in at all.
Ken's got a grief guy. And so let's not forget, he's got a really great, he's got the best grief guy. Yeah. I want to, okay, before we end the episode, I have to point out a couple of moments. Okay. The first one that I really am desperate to share with you all is compression socks. Now, I didn't know that season 4 of Succession was going to be so compression sock heavy. There was a compression sock reference last episode.
But again, I know you hoped it would be. You just didn't know if it would.
I just didn't. Yeah. No, I think about them every day. Compression socks. But I was like, but Frank and fucking Carl putting on their compression socks and Tom taking a nice hard stare at them. I died. It was so funny. But also I was just like, I want to get in on the compression sock game just for the amusement of others. Like, let's all be putting on compression socks every time we get on a flight. Folks, what are we doing? It's so fucking hilarious. Okay, but here's another one. Let me see. This I thought was funny because it kind of speaks to a lot of what we've said about Shiv. Ken said, Shiv's like trying to talk to them. They're on the plane. And Ken goes, Shiv, like, basically, can you give us a minute? Like, Shiv, we're death wrestling with ogres. And Shiv's like, you're reading documents, Ken.
Oh, I loved it so much. Oh my God. How many times has a man in your life, Negin, told you that he's Hercules summiting the mountain and what he's actually do is trying to make toast? Incredible. Incredible.
I know. I love that moment so much. Did you guys have any? I have more moments, but did either of you have moments you want to share?
I mean, I love Jerry's pump up speech. When, to get their game face on when they're just falling to pieces. She's like, look, they think they're Vikings, but they're European. They're soft. We were raised by wolves.
Yes.
Like, this, Jerry is just so superbly good at this.
Yes.
And probably the most competent person in the room at any given moment.
Yes.
She also might actually have personal politics. That speech implied that to me, which is rare in this system.
Yes.
I also, the tag on that scene was brilliant because Hugo takes a look around. He goes, we're snakes on a plane.
We're snakes on a plane. Which, has there been a more like self-aware, unaware, self-aware statement been said? I just love, Frank and Carl just hitting it out of the park every time. They're just pinch hitters and they just, they're knocking home runs every time they come up to the plate. Like looking at the poor assholes and sweating it out, just like hanging there in the window, like Peking
duck. Amazing. Amazing. Danielle, did you have any?
Oh my God, so many, but a couple just to share is I can't get over Shiv saying in response to should we keep ATN, let's just keep one of his sweaters, less racist.
Yes, so funny.
That's an incredible line, but it also speaks to Shiv's capacity to just level these guys with one phrase. Another moment that I really loved, and this is just like a random little moment, but when they're first getting there, they're on their way to Norway, and Greg is so excited because he's going to find some hotties. Greg really believes internationally that he is hottie adjacent. I've yet to see it, but I'm excited for him. When Tom says Norway, Sweden, what's the difference? All descended from the same rapists.
Yes,
incredible. And the last moment I want to highlight, because I think this show does this so brilliantly that sometimes we don't even notice, where wordplay kind of comes back within the episode. What does Hugo say they're going to do? Bleed the Swede. What do we find out about the Swede? Not only does he bleed, but he freezes it and someone as an act of sexual harassment. The kind of, this writer's room is so brilliant. That kind of rhyming, in a sense, narrative rhyming. When I notice it, it's like a joy bomb hits my face. I loved that.
Those are also moments that I would love to like sit down and write and be like, did you guys know you were doing that? Because oftentimes, as a filmmaker myself, folks, it doesn't matter. I once lived in Paris. Fine.
Do you have a credenza?
I also I have a credenza. And so, but as someone who's made movies, people will point out things from my films and be like, oh my God, it's so brilliant the way you did this and this. And I'll totally be like, oh my God, thank you. Like, I didn't know that I did that. That was accidental. Oh, pure accident, folks. And I love, because I've seen, big time directors admit to like getting compliments for shit that they had no idea. But I love that. But also things are working under the surface. You know what I mean?
It's unconscious, right?
It's unconscious.
And I do want to also make sure that we call out the fact that like bleeding the Swede turns out he's into it. That's actually what he wants. And so thematically it works out very nicely. It puts a button on it. And what's really nice is that getting the thing you want is actually sometimes the opposite of what's good for you or what feels good. And that no one's ever going to feel good about any of this except the people who just want to cash out. You know, like all the people who are buzzing around, and they're always going to exist and looking for a move. And like, let's not. Oh, I don't want to let this moment go by either. Connor in talking to them when he's trying to get his father out of the kilt so he doesn't look weird for the flyover states, which is just a perfect thing that he's worried about all the racist voters in the Midwest. One of the things that he says, which is so Connor, is he's like, I want carte blanche, but I don't want to get blamed.
I know.
Yes.
That's his mission statement for life.
That's his mission statement. It's so perfect. It so perfectly encapsulates. It's like, I want to do what I want, and I don't want to take any of the blame. I need someone else to say it's
Yes,
okay.
and he also had to like cancel on a room of working class whites or something in
Cleveland. Yes.
Another great line. Shiv they arrive at the retreat and Shiv goes, "Where's Chairman Matson's re-education camp?" I thought that was brilliant. And a Greg line where he's going like, "We're the Roy Patrol, we're the Quad Squad, we're the family." And Shiv goes, "The fuck?" And I lost it. So brilliant. There is, of course, many wonderful lines in this show. And if you want to share them with any of us, please hit us up on all the social medias that you should not be engaging with, obviously. But Danielle, if they wanted to do that, where would they?
Yeah, if you want to do the terrible thing of engaging with social media, find me on Instagram where I'm at @ddurch, which is @ddurch. I'd love to hear what you think.
And Benari, where do they do that with you?
On Instagram @Benari Lee, BENARILEE. Also still on the Twitter for as long as that lasts. I moved over to Spoutable, but I haven't used it really, but I'm there. Same thing.
Okay, great.
So, you know, whatever.
I haven't made any real moves myself, though. I mean, I have lost my blue check, so quiet.
But
moment.
none of this matters.
But none of it matters. I have a rich life of love. Okay.
Yes.
You have the one thing that Roman Roy can never get.
That's that we'll never have. So there we go. Folks, you know where to find me. And it also occurs to me, I feel like I don't tell people with enough time when I'm going to be doing a particular city, when it's Wait specifically. I'm gonna be in Nashville for Wait this week. So if you are in Nashville, there might still be tickets. I actually have no idea, but we tape on Thursdays. We will be taping on Thursday in Nashville, and I would love it if you came out. You know, it would be great to see Fake the Nation peeps in the audience of a Wait, Don't Tell Me show. And of course, you know where to find me on all the social medias. I would love to hear any of your additional lines. I could like just read Succession lines in my feed all day long. Like that's that's what I would love.
I hope the next episode is just a rereading, just a rereading of the episode.
That's all we need to do. Yeah. That's gonna be. By the way, folks, we plan on putting this episode on YouTube. So if you're the kind of person that would rather get your pod in YouTube form, hopefully that'll be happening for you. And I want to thank all the people that make the show a possibility. That's our wonderful producer, Andrew McGuire, and our fantastic theme music, which is a remix of the Fakes the Nation theme music, inspired by the Succession theme music. That was written by the wonderful Bobby Alter. You folks, hit me up. What do you want to hear us talk about? Are there any burning questions about this world of billionaires that we haven't been addressing that you want us to address? I'm all here. You can reach us at fakethenationpodcast@gmail.com. Again, that's fakethenationpodcast@gmail.com. We will be back in your earballs with a regular show of Fake the Nation on Thursday. Good luck and good night and goodbye.